Okay, um, part 5, introduced to oxys, tried to sell oxys, failed at selling oxys, and then tried to live a normal life. Tried to sweep up my life into a little pile and um, start moving forward again. Well, I wasn't exactly successful at doing that. Um, I was looking for a job. Um, Things were still pretty shaky from the dot-com bubble bursting, and I wasn't able to find a job in the tech industry like I had wanted, which was extremely frustrating. Um, I decided to move back home with my parents just to try to get back on my feet and uh, hopefully things could get better for me. That's what I was hoping. But I still had about a month left at my apartment, so I still saw Barbarella and MJ around, and so I was still doing pills here and there. I was hoping that moving home would get me away from those influences and I could focus on getting my shit together. So I had about a month left and I was still feeling pretty burnt out from all the cocaine and the pills. And so I was trying to keep it pretty low key. But one night MJ and Barbarella, they came over to my apartment and they're like, "Oh, hey, you got to come over. We got this awesome shit." And so I went over and went up in MJ's room, and they're both just kind of acting a little off, just kind of weird. And there was this crushed up white powder on MJ's nightstand. He hands me a dollar bill and he's like, "Oh, snort it." And I'm like, well, what is it? Is it a pill? Is it coke? You know, because I really didn't want to do coke again. I was really sticking to my guns on the no coke, and he's like, just try it. It's awesome. And for some reason, I don't know if it's peer pressure or I'm just an idiot, I snorted it, and it honestly felt like somebody had took a hot poker and jabbed it up my nose into my brain. It burned like crazy. Well, I found out after I had snorted that it was meth, which, oh my hell, never in a bajillion years would I have ever thought that I would do meth. And never in a million years would I ever have a desire to do meth. Junkies and tweakers don't really mix very well. Meth heads like to be spun out and acting all crazy and energetic. Junkies like to be chill and nodding off and sleep a lot. So I really liked the pills and the opiates, and I didn't like the uppers so much. So meth was just not not on my bucket list of things that I wanted to fucking try. And then, you know, there's always the pictures you see of the fucking tweakers without teeth and they look like they're 90 years old but they're only 30, and meth just scared me. So I had just snorted a fat line of meth, and the powder was like little crystals and like glass. That should have given it away, but like I said, I'm a moron, and I didn't really use my brain a whole lot at that junction of my life. So MJ and Barbarella, they're dying laughing. They're just busting out laughing their asses off at my expense because, frankly, I was a little upset that they kind of had tricked me into snorting a shitload of meth, and I was starting to get all jittery and shit. And they're like, "Okay, well, we're going out on a date, so see ya." And I was like, "What the fuck?" I just snorted all this meth and I'm all spun out and I don't know what the fuck to do. So I went back to my apartment and I shit you not, I sat and played Dr. Mario on my Nintendo for about 24 hours. No sleep or anything. I was a fucking zombie sitting there with my NES controller in my hand playing Dr. Mario. Like a fucking zombie for like a day. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. It was awful. So when I finally came down from the meth, which I don't even know how many days passed by, I was like, okay, that's fucking it. I'm out. Like, I know I paid my last month worth of rent, but I'm fucking done. So I packed up all my shit in the back of my truck, and I still had like 3 weeks left on my contract. I was like, all right, I'm out, and I moved back home. I packed my shit and said, okay, this is it, clean slate. I'm starting from scratch. Like I'm done. I'm gonna be a normal fucking person for a change. Um, and all was well for a while. I didn't see MJ again for a very, very long time. Months went by before I saw MJ again, but Barbarella I saw pretty frequently. She would come over to my parents' house and spend the night and uh, hang out, and we'd watch Band of Brothers and play video games and shit like that. And every so often we would get some pills. And that's just kind of what we did whenever we were together. Go figure. But one night, like I was jonesing really bad for some pills. I can't remember what was going on. I think I just wasn't having any luck finding a job, and I was getting really frustrated, and I really just wanted to be numb, to feel numb for a while. And we called everybody. Barbarella and I, we called everybody we knew. This guy was like, "Oh yeah, we can get you some pills." So um, I went to the ATM, pulled out a bunch of money to go buy the pills, and I ended up getting ripped off. I got ripped off all my money, and just I was pissed, right? Like I was really bent, and I got taken advantage of quite a bit at the early stages of my addiction. I was very naive on the way with how the way things went and the ugly side of addiction and the robbery and the getting your shit stolen and people being dishonest and lying and people just being fucking junkies, right? Like I wasn't used to that yet. So I had a whole bunch of money ripped off from me. I got no pills, went home. I was just crushed. And Barbarella was there, and she was all disappointed that we didn't get any shit. And so she leaves, comes back the next day, and we're trying to get pills again. But I noticed she's got like some nasal spray, and she's spraying it up in her nose, and she felt fine, and everything was good, and she wasn't jonesing. And we couldn't find any pills. And so she hands me this nasal spray bottle. And she's like, just take a few sprays of this. And so I do. And I was like, wow, damn, that makes me feel pretty great. Like, what is in that bottle? Like, she wouldn't, like, hand it over and let me, like, examine it. It was like, well, here it is, do a couple sprays and then give it back to her. And she's like, oh, well, it's just, I got an oxy, crushed it up and mixed it with water. It's a new way to snort pills. And I was just like, wow, that's fucking amazing. that stuff makes me feel great. Even better than oxys. Like, this stuff is just awesome. And I didn't think anything of it, right? Like, why would she lie to me? You know, it's like, that's awesome. So I got some oxys a few days later, and I bought a little spray bottle, emptied it out, cleaned it out really well. I filled it full of hot water, and I crushed up some oxys, and I put it in there. And it didn't do anything for me. I was like, okay, it's kind of weird. Like, nothing. It just made like this gooey, pasty mess in the bottle. Wasted some perfectly good oxys, and it just didn't work. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm just not doing it right. And she came over again with her little spray bottle. She called it spray, and we would get high off it, and we would get extremely high to the point where I was like passing out and shit. And one time I heard her on the phone, and I heard her slip up, and she said H spray. And that was like my first hint that all was not well. H and spray. Well, H was the H stand for. Well, you know, it took me a minute to kind of put it together. And that night she left her bottle. She's like, "Well, you can have the rest of my bottle." And I used it all up, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, "Oh, it's all dirty inside. You know, it's all like dark and shit. Like the bottle's all stained." And that's when the light bulb went on above my head, like, bing, holy shit, it's freaking heroin. I've been doing heroin. That is heroin in this bottle. Like, you think of heroin, you think of, like, burnt tinfoil, burnt spoons, and needles and shit like that. And heroin always kind of scared me. And heroin and meth were, like, the two drugs I will never touch in a million years. Like, that's just what I had in my head. Like, all growing up, it was like, don't do drugs, heroin is bad, meth is bad, fucking toothless people, and people living on the streets with, you know, track marks up and down their arms, and burnt spoons, and needles, and trust me, I hate needles. I have like some crazy phobia against needles. I will hyperventilate, I will pass out on a flu shot. True story. I have passed out getting a flu shot. Something about needles. I don't do needles. So, like, my whole association of heroin was needles and everything negative about it. But here I was, like, 2 weeks into using heroin, and it felt amazing. I'm not going to lie. I mean, people do drugs for a reason, and it makes you feel good and numb, and that's why people do drugs. But drugs are bad, and drugs will lead you places you don't want to go. Trust me. I have been there. And so this was kind of like a big eye-opener for me. But by then I was kind of hooked. Like, if I went a day, I was starting to feel really sick, and I didn't understand why I was feeling like I had the flu. And the moment Barbarella would come over and we would do some, I felt great. I felt fine. I was withdrawing. Holy shit. How terrible is that? Fucking terrible. And I even confronted her about it. I'm like, it's fucking heroin. And she's like, no, it's not. But by then I was hooked and I didn't care. You know, I was just like, well, fuck. Why are we even trying to find pills? Let's just get let's get some dope. And I started buying pre-mixed nasal spray bottles of heroin from her dealer, from her friend who had a hook. So shit just got crazy after I started using heroin. And wow, that was like the quickest 15 minutes I have ever done. Holy shit, I could go on for hours, but so now in the story, I'm a freaking heroin addict, and things take a turn for the worse. In the next part, I actually get a job. It was pretty neato, and shit really goes sideways at this point. But anyways, as always, thank you for listening.